In this briefing we're going to be looking at how to turn right from a main road into a side road. To do this you'll be using the now familiar routine of mirrors, signal, manoeuvre. Starting with mirrors. The first thing to remember about your mirrors is that you need to check them early to see what's happening behind, to give yourself plenty of time to react to anything that might be happening. You need to be asking yourself the question, is it safe for me to make this turn? The sort of things that might make it unsafe are perhaps emergency vehicles, for example. You wouldn't want to turn across the path of an emergency vehicle, that could be really dangerous, but likewise you wouldn't want to hold the vehicle up if you were waiting to give way to somebody who was turning right. You could hold up an emergency vehicle, that would be a problem. Then there might possibly be vehicles overtaking you, so you need to know what's happening there. Whoops, you wouldn't want that to happen. Normally you'll use two mirrors when you're approaching any junction situation or any other situation really, a minimum of two mirrors to give you the best possible view behind. As a general rule, start with your inside mirror, that gives a true picture of the distance of the vehicle behind, and then a quick glance into the right door mirror. This will help you see whether there's anything coming up on the outside, like the overtaking vehicle we saw a moment ago. It might not seem logical, but sometimes you'll want to use the left door mirror as well. If you're turning, for example, on a bend, the left door mirror might give you the best view along the road. Whichever mirrors you use, it's important to think that when you're using your mirrors, it's to give you the best possible information about what's happening behind before you give your signal. When you've checked your mirrors and you know it's safe to turn, you'll need to let other people know exactly what you intend to do. The first thing to think about here is your signal timing. If you signal too soon, you might confuse other drivers into thinking that you're going to take a driveway or an opening on the right. They might be wondering exactly what you're going to do. Another example of an early signal that can be misleading is when there's a parked car on the left. Here we can see the driver of the yellow car has signalled early to pass the green car, but this might leave drivers behind thinking that he's only signalling to pass the parked car. And on this occasion they might not realise that he's actually going to turn right. In order to prevent this problem occurring, you need to move into position nice and early before you give your signal, as we can see this driver doing. Signalling too late can also be a problem. If you signal too late, you might not give the driver behind enough time to react to what you're doing. For example, if someone pulls out in front, or simply if you have to stop to give way to an approaching vehicle. Next, we need to think about how you signal. Do you signal using your indicator? Do you signal using an arm signal? Or sometimes you might decide to use both an indicator and an arm signal. Here we can see a parked car on the left. If we just used an indicator signal, people might think we were again just passing the parked car and not turning right. By using an arm signal, we can reinforce the fact that we're actually making the turn. The next thing to do is to check your mirrors. Now, we've already checked our mirrors earlier on, but this time we're checking to see if the driver behind has responded to our signal. When we give a signal, we're really saying to the people on the road, the other people on the road, is it okay if I do this manoeuvre? When you check your mirrors now, you're looking for the answer. How's the driver behind responding? So, we've checked our mirrors and we've given a signal. After giving your signal and checking what the following drivers are doing, you're ready to move into position for your turn. Now, here your position is going to be just left of the centre line. By moving into a position just left of the centre line, you confirm your signal with body language. In this case, it's car body language. When you move into position, make sure you leave enough space for oncoming vehicles. We don't want to get into the way of oncoming vehicles, so if there's a large vehicle coming the other way, you may need to keep a little bit further to the left. Sometimes there might be parked vehicles on the right hand side of the road. If this is the case, keep well to the left. That will allow enough room for vehicles to come the other way, and it will allow you enough space to see into the side road, into the shaded area there on the diagram. On roads that are wide enough and where there is enough room, always leave enough space for other vehicles to pass on the left hand side. Now on this road there's only enough room there for a cyclist perhaps to pass. On wider roads there might be enough room for vehicles to pass. If the road were any narrower than this, your position would probably be not so far to the centre. You'd probably stay fairly central in your lane. Now you won't always be able to make your turn without stopping, because when you're turning right you have to give way to approaching vehicles. This shows the approximate waiting position. Now this position will vary depending upon the width of the road. You need to be in a position where you can get a good view into the side road, and also you need enough room to steer clearly into that turning without cutting the corner. So you need to keep clear of that area there that's shown with the circle. When you're waiting in this position, keep your wheels pointing straight ahead. This will protect you in the event that you were maybe bumped from behind by another vehicle, or if you were to slip off the clutch and your car moved forwards, you'd be pushed straight ahead. If your wheels were turned, you'd be pushed potentially into the path of approaching vehicles. So, we've checked our mirrors, we've given our signal, and we've taken up our position. Speed. When approaching a right turn, you need to slow down to consider the situation. Where the situation permits, it's always best to reduce speed after moving into position. This way you won't hold up traffic that's following behind. This traffic can then pass you on your left hand side. This won't always be possible in narrow roads. Whatever the situation, you must always be going slow enough to stop safely, if necessary. Other drivers might not always do what you expect them to. Time your approach to arrive when the road is clear. Here we see our car reaches the junction after the red car has passed. You can achieve this by looking well ahead and adjusting your speed on the approach. Never speed up to try and beat oncoming drivers. They might be speeding up as well. If the road is clear, change gear normally to second and then bring the clutch up fully before you start to turn. If you need to stop, change directly to first gear when you arrive. Change gear after positioning where possible. Make sure you're going slow enough to stop. Time your approach to arrive when the road is clear, and select an appropriate gear before you start to steer. Now we need to make sure it's safe. This phase will be starting earlier on. You'll be starting to look and assess the situation as you're working with your speed and your gear. But let's think about where we need to be looking and what we need to be thinking about. First, is there any approaching traffic that will affect us and prevent us from turning? We've got to give way to any traffic that's coming towards us if we're going to cross their path. Next, is there any traffic emerging from the side road? We've got to be careful here, particularly if somebody coming the other way is giving way. Here we can see confusion when the blue car flashes his lights, causing the red car to come out. We might think that the blue car is flashing at us, and perhaps he was flashing at us, but we've got to be aware of what other people think as well. Pedestrians and cyclists are particularly vulnerable, so we need to be checking all around the junction area to see if there's anybody who will be affected. Also, we need to be thinking about the road behind. We've already seen the problems that could occur if someone is overtaking us when we go to turn right. So use your mirrors to make sure that nobody's overtaking you. So you're using your mirrors quite a lot in this routine as you're coming up to the junction. Finally, you've got to make your decision to go and get on with it as soon as the road's clear. Your decision is going to be based on what you can see. So you're going to ask yourself, as we've already been saying, about the things that are happening all around and what might happen. Is the gap large enough in the approaching traffic? A useful tip here is that if you think that there's enough room to walk across the road, if you think there'll be enough time to walk from one side of the road to the other, then there'll be enough time to turn across the road in front of any traffic that comes the other way. Are there any parked vehicles in the side road? These might not prevent you from turning, but you need to be cautious. For example, there could be a small child playing in front of that vehicle who's going to step out. And when you turn, you're potentially going to be put into the path of approaching vehicles. So that's something else that you need to be aware of and need to be cautious about. Is there a traffic queue in the side road? If so, you'll need to wait in your waiting position until the road's clear. Otherwise, you're going to be blocking the road for approaching traffic. Are there any pedestrians crossing the side road? You must give way to pedestrians who are already crossing the road and wait for them to get out of the way before you start to turn, without hustling them, without harassing them, revving your engine or anything like that. Just be patient, wait in your waiting position, let them cross. So, when you think it's safe to proceed, you can drive across. But you must be careful to keep well to your own side of the road. Otherwise, if you cross onto the wrong side of the road, you could have real problems. Once you've entered the new road, check your mirrors to make sure that it's safe before you start to increase your speed, and make sure that your signals are cancelled. So, we've checked our mirrors, we've given our signal, we've taken up our position, adjusted our speed, looked to see if the road's clear, assessed the situation thinking about other road users, made our decision, and then taken positive action to turn. To summarise, mirrors. Check your mirrors early to see what's happening all around. Signal. Signalling good time without confusing other people. Position. Normally just left of the centre of the road, but make allowances for parked vehicles or anything else that's happening. Your speed needs to be slow enough to stop or to turn safely, depending what's happening at the time. You're going to start looking early, and you're going to be checking all the areas where there might be problems before you assess the situation, make your decision, and finally make your turn. And that's turning right.